I am Teresa Banks, and welcome to Urban Voices. In celebration of Black History Month, we are going to test your knowledge of African American history. Washington and Lee history professor Ted Delaney and local historian Arlene Ollie will help us with the answers to our quiz questions and introduce us to some of the pioneers who changed our nation. Let's get started. First question. Which millionaire Black entrepreneur and inventor started out by washing laundry? Was it A, Madam C.J. Walker, B, Alice Parker, C, Henry Blair, or D, Thomas Elkins? The answer is A, Madam C.J. Walker.
The accomplishments of C.J. Walker are important because she develops a really popular cosmetic, if we can call hair straighteners cosmetics, and I think we can, that sort of revolutionizes the way Black women look at themselves over a very long period of time. If you look at her life, she's born in 1867, and so she's growing up, she's coming of age during Reconstruction. She's born to sharecropper parents in Louisiana, and sharecropping was hardly different from slavery. And so she's coming of age at a time when lynching is an incredible problem. She's orphaned at an early age, and she marries at an early age. She marries a man named Moses McWilliams, who allegedly is lynched. And as a result, she's a widow by age 20. She has a small child, and she somehow has to make a living. But she's losing her hair, according to one account, and she is somehow inspired that she should develop a hair growing formula. The importance of what she does is she develops the straightening comb. And nobody knows any better than me what the straightening comb is, because my mother was a Black beautician. It helped Black women to feel good about themselves. It helped Black women to understand themselves in a different way, but it was also an industry that helped people like my mother and enriched people like Madam Walker and her daughter.
So what is the legacy of this woman who probably organized the first national meeting of business women?
Well, the legacy of this woman is that women, first of all, women in general, can be successful. They can be successful entrepreneurs. The greater legacy is that even a Black woman can be a successful entrepreneur. But one of the things that I think about historically is that during this particular era, it also takes near miracle to achieve this, because Black achievement is very hard to come by during this period when there are laws that are disfranchising people, there are laws that are making it very difficult for people to have any achievements at all, and there are also laws that are limiting what can be taught in Black schools during this particular period.
Which African American inventor created the blood bank? Was it A, Benjamin Banneker, B, George Carruthers, C, Joseph Lee, or was it D, Charles Richard Drew? The answer is D, Dr. Charles Richard Drew.
So he's got a Canadian medical degree, and he comes from McGill, and eventually is, I think in the 1930s, he's at Columbia University, and he's studying for a doctor of science in medicine. While he was still at McGill, he had become very interested in the problem of preserving blood. And so once he's at Columbia, he's able to work on this idea of preservation of blood. He knows that it's impossible to store blood, whole blood, for any length of time, but he discovers in his laboratory that he can separate blood cells away from the plasma, the more liquid portion of the blood, and he can freeze the plasma for long periods of time, and that plasma can actually be used as a substitute for whole blood. World War II was just starting, and the idea that men who are injured on the battlefield are going to need blood, are going to need blood transfusions. And rather than having to transfuse directly from another human being, you can have this blood bank, the supply of blood that is available to be used in military hospitals. One of the difficulties for Charles Drew is that after this great achievement, this great accomplishment, he is appalled when he's told that this blood has to be segregated by race. And he argues, no, the only thing that we need to do is segregate it by type, not by race. That's not necessary. He doesn't win the argument, and he resigns from the Red Cross as a result. Charles Drew's significance, it seems to me, is that what he develops saves countless trillions of lives around the world. This is probably one of the most significant developments in modern medicine that I can think of.
Next, true or false? One of the first African Americans to graduate from Washington and Lee University was an American Revolutionary War veteran. The answer is true. John Chavis fought in the American Revolutionary War.
John Chavis was born free in 1763, and it's debatable where he was born, but I'm pretty convinced it was Virginia, someplace in Virginia. We don't know much about the Revolutionary Service, but he himself fashioned himself as a veteran of the American Revolution. By 1790, he was a student of Dr. John Witherspoon, who was the president of the College of New Jersey, now Princeton. The College of New Jersey was a Presbyterian school, and the Presbyterian Church, like other evangelical churches, trained blacks for the ministry for the purpose of evangelizing slaves. So John Chavis was studying with John Witherspoon, who usually tutored a few free blacks and a few American Indians. Witherspoon dies in 1795, and John Chavis turns up on the records of the school in 1795. And life becomes very difficult for him after 1831, after the Nat Turner raid, when southern states have legal prescriptions against teaching blacks to read and write, are black preachers. And so at that point, and he's old at that point, he becomes pretty much dependent upon a pension from the local presbytery, and unfortunately oftentimes he has to beg for the pension payment. But the lesson for me was that here's an incredible life. Here is probably, well, not probably, here's the first college-educated black man in America, but a black man who has to work out what his own destiny is in a society that has no place for an educated black.
When we return, we'll turn our attention to local history. Some amazing entrepreneurs laid the groundwork for today's business leaders.
Few sights thrill the heart more than these magnificent creatures. Despite the international ban on commercial whaling, Japan's government kills thousands of whales under the guise of scientific research, then sells them for the profit in Japan's markets. Ignoring international outrage, Japan has begun to kill even more whales. Help us stop whaling now, before it's too late.
Forces here are very powerful. They want you to know they're here to help. Even when you're gone, the forces are hard at work. Inside your DVR.
Come watch with us, Daddy.
That's our twins. Cute, huh?
Cross over to the digital world with a DVR from Cox and never miss your favorite shows.
Rechargeable batteries let us go anywhere and do anything. But the freedom to go unplugged comes with responsibility. Look at that.
Wow.
The responsibility to recycle. If you've got old rechargeable batteries hanging around, take them in to be recycled. It's easy, and it's good for the environment. Check us out online, or give us a call at 1-800-8-BATTERY to learn more.
guitar lessons on demand. One of the thousands of free choices you'll find on demand from Cox.
Wow, you sure this is your first lesson?
Soon, people everywhere will set their own programming schedules. They will not be restricted by something as trivial as location. They are Generation Cox, and entertainment will follow them. No matter where they are.
Generation Cox is coming. Are you ready?
The Gainsborough Library in Roanoke has been an integral part of the community since it was established in 1921. The Catholic Diocese of Richmond donated land for a new building, and in 1942 the library moved to its current location, 15 Patton Avenue. Under the direction of Virginia Lee, the library and its collection grew. Lee served as the head librarian for 43.5 years, educating Gainsborough's youth, teaching children reading, self-respect, and the love of books. She also built a substantial collection of Black history books, still housed at the library in a room that bears her name. The Gainsborough Library was placed on the National Register of Historic Places and the Virginia Landmarks Register in 1996.
Welcome back to Urban Voices. We've been testing your knowledge of Black history. Now we'll turn our attention to the African American leaders who made the Roanoke Valley home to a thriving Black community. Local historian Arlene Ollie will share her research on what life was like in the Roanoke Valley for African Americans in the early 1900s. But first, our quiz. True or false? In the early 1900s, African Americans in Roanoke owned and operated businesses such as savings and loans, mortuaries, and retail stores. The answer is true.
Doctors, grocery stores, carpenters, painters, hucksters. Those are people who sell their wares on the market.
The first African American attorney was listed in the Roanoke City Directory in what year? A. 1882, B. 1910, C. 1895, or D. 1900? The answer is C. 1895. In 1904, J.S. Julia Jameson owned what business utilized by both African American and white Roanoke residents? Was it A. Dixie Steam Laundry, B. the Hampton Theater, C. Picklick Catering, or was it D. Community Drugstore? The answer is A. Dixie Steam Laundry.
Julia Jameson ran Dixie Steam Laundry. It was on 12 Luck Avenue, which is downtown Roanoke, right off Jefferson Street. In 1902, when she took over, there were very, very few white women who had businesses, let alone a Black woman in downtown Roanoke.
After the break, Dr. Ted Delaney and Arlene Ollie talk about the importance of teaching Black history and sharing our own histories with the younger generation.
Explore her grandeur. Appreciate her beauty. Protect her for tomorrow. We all share the responsibility for protecting nature and preserving the environment for future generations. You can help by recycling your old rechargeable batteries. Call 877-2RECYCLE or visit us online at calltorecycle.org to learn where you can recycle your old rechargeable batteries. Please, answer the call to recycle.
Guess how much it
cost to get high-def service with Cox? Zilch, zip, nada. Because now, HD is free with Cox Digital Cable. Great HD channels with no monthly service fee. No extra equipment to buy. No long-term contract. No wondering if it's too expensive. It's not. It's free. And so are your local channels in HD. Free HD. Just another reason to choose Cox Digital Cable.
You know, if you had a DVR, you wouldn't need me.
What else?
Charlie, Joe, I can't believe you double-crossed me. Joe, I just took what was mine. Charlie, I'll give you what's yours. Bang, bang.
But that's his brother.
Yeah, he was a rat.
With a digital video recorder from Cox, you'll never miss your favorite shows.
Have you ever considered a career in theater?
Meet Sally Ordinary. Poor Sally, no one wants to come over and hang out with her. Perhaps that's because she still lives the same way she did in college. That is until Sally discovered HGTV On Demand. The experts in making ordinary into extraordinary are now at the touch of a button. Now she's Sally Not So Ordinary. Meow. HGTV On Demand, free with your digital cable subscription.
Tune to Channel 1 and press Select. Choose Free Zone and watch all you want for free.
Jeez, Mike, I had no idea.
Yeah, still getting used to it ourselves. Hey, you want to take a peek? Quite a sight, eh? Digital cable, digital telephone, high-speed internet. I'm gonna get emotional.
Oh gosh, it changes your life.
Get a lot less sleep.
Yeah.
The Cox Bundle of Joy, starting at under $100.
And I promised myself I wouldn't cry.
If you're looking for a prolific inventor, Elijah McCoy was the real McCoy, and some theorize his inventions were the basis of the saying, the real McCoy. McCoy was born in Canada in 1843. His parents, slaves, fled north via the Underground Railroad. McCoy was educated in Scotland as a mechanical engineer. He returned to the U.S. to work as a locomotive fireman and oiler for the Michigan Central Railroad. McCoy was issued 57 patents. One of his inventions, the self-regulating lubricator, revolutionized the railroad industry. Because his product was so reliable and many inferior products were produced, buyers of the lubricator would reportedly ask, "Is this the real McCoy?"
This edition of Urban Voices has been a brief look at Black history. John Chavis' story is very meaningful to Dr. Ted Delaney. As a high school graduate in 1961, Dr. Delaney could not attend WNL. African Americans were not admitted to the school at that time. In 1979, in his late 30s, he started classes at WNL. The Lexington native used his degree from the university to become a teacher in North Carolina. He then headed to William & Mary to get his doctorate.
I have sort of enjoyed my education more than I think most people do, because I think that those of us who go to school as mature people, rather than straight out of high school, have an appreciation for education that youth do not have. I also have enjoyed, from the angle of history, just watching this place change. When I came here to work at age 19, it was all male and it was all white. And today it's a very, very different place. 51% of the students, for instance, are women. Nobody would have dreamed of that 40 years ago, and much less it being an integrated school 40 years ago. There are about 150 international students on this campus. So one of the things that I've enjoyed is watching the change.
What can young people learn from your story?
The thing that young people can learn from my story is the same thing they can learn from John Chavis, or Madam Walker, or Charles Drew, or any of the people that we could conjure up here. It's that you have to study hard, you have to work hard, and you have to have a sense of priorities. You can't spend all of your time partying. You can't spend your time thinking that things will just sort of take care of themselves. You got to work hard.
Arlene Ollie graduated from Hollins University in 1995 at the age of 48. She researched and authored a book called African American History in Roanoke City, a compilation of records. Holly found something she did not expect in her research of the early African Americans in Roanoke: a sense of pride in their accomplishments. She was also inspired by the obstacles they overcame to succeed.
In 1865, when slavery ended, there was no food stamps, no welfare, no hospitals, no apartments, no shelters, no electricity, no running water, and certainly no gas for heat. There were no motels. So you've got all these people free. To do what? To go where? It was against the law to be educated, to be able to read. You couldn't own any. There were very few African Americans who had skills. So what was the freedom? Fortunately, the Freedmen's Bureau stepped in and helped some, but it was a very difficult time. But between the years of 1865 and 1900, all over this country, African Americans made a home for themselves. They made communities. They were educators. They were doctors. They were lawyers. Hospitals, anything that was needed to make a full-service community, we did it in 35 years or less. That's impressive to me.
So why did you undertake the project?
I grew up in Northeast Roanoke, which was the first part to be been renewalized, I guess one would say. But that was the first neighborhood to be destroyed. And I thought about all the people who, that was the safest time of my life, the happiest time of my life in that neighborhood. And I wanted to preserve it, so to speak. And when I started doing the book, because people had so many different stories to tell that they wanted me to tell, that I decided to go to the books. And once I did that, I realized I didn't want to separate Northeast from Northwest, Southeast, Southwest. Mm-hmm. So I just decided to do the entire city. And I'm glad I did, because it got rid of a lot of stereotypical ideas that during that time the races were separated. That's not true. In the early parts of the century, blacks and whites lived together. So it was a very interesting, unexpected, as most of the information was, quite unexpected. There were things I did not expect to find. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I did it.
So what did you get out of it, and what are you hoping your readers will learn from it?
I want the people here in Roanoke, particularly the children, to understand your circumstances do not control your future. It's good to know your past. It's like a road map to where you can go, what you can do. And think of all the names that I've brought up in that book and all the different jobs. Somebody belongs to these people. Whose family doesn't know their history? Who doesn't know that perhaps Benjamin Smith, the jeweler, the watchmaker, was somebody's great uncle or great grandfather? So African American teenagers don't have a lot of things to be proud of now. But I think if we can get them to read their history, think about their family genealogy, it'll give them a better sense of self where they won't need to depend on someone on TV as a role model or a sports player as a role model. I think reality should be the role model, And hopefully my African American history teaching and promotion will be that.
Unfortunately, people don't understand why there is a Black History Month or the importance of Black history. Why is the study of Black history so important?
Black history has been suppressed. And that reasoning was, if we didn't know our history, then we would be more American. We would be more reliant on American history rather than African American history. Okay, so that's why I'm having such a hard time. There are no records. I find maybe a paragraph here or a sentence here, or I may be able to find a document at the court, at the state library. So it's a hard job to do because it has been suppressed. We weren't all happy slaves, contrary to common belief and what's being taught in school. And when you know who you are, when you have a sense of self, you don't have a reason to get angry because someone else makes an unkind remark. You don't have to base who you are on what another individual has to say about you, because that's confidence of knowing where you came from and who you came from cannot be destroyed.
I hope you enjoyed our Black History quiz. For more information on Black inventors, log on to about.com or blackinventor.com. Thanks to Dr. Ted Delaney and Arlene Ollie for sharing their research and stories. I'm Teresa Banks. Thank you for tuning into this edition of Urban Voices. God bless, stay safe, and be happy.
What do you think about this?
Well, we got a clown, monkey.
Yeah.
You don't see that every day.
The phone and the internet actually work together.
I mean, you can check your voicemails online?
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that before.
Cox Digital Telephone. Phone service like you've never seen. Someone